there. Here's another little video talking about U.S. political parties for American government. We've looked at the U.S. political spectrum already. Now it's time to analyze the political parties that go along with it. We're going to start off about what is a political party. So when we talk about political party, it's just a group of people with similar beliefs. So if you have a group of people that generally believe the exact same, close to the same thing, that can make them a political party. There'll be a few core beliefs that all members of a party will pretty much come along with. They're not going to agree 100%, but in general, they're going to agree for the basics on a number of core beliefs, all right? Now, the thing is, in the United States, we've had political parties since before the dawn of the Constitution. While the Constitution was being debated for ratification, you saw the Federalists and Anti-Federalists, two groups are arguing for and against the Constitution. One wanted the Constitution signed just as is, the other one arguing that the Constitution had to have amendments and a Bill of Rights to it. Right after the signing of the Constitution, with the first presidency of George Washington, you had Federalists and you had Democratic Republicans or Jeffersonian Republicans, each with their own ideas about how the country should be run. Should we be a industrialized country and work with France? Should we be or Britain, I should say? Should we be a farming country and work with France or Britain? Those kind of things kind of came a role in terms of early on what our parties were. Today, our two-party system is pretty unique. Over the whole dawn of U.S. history, about 240 years, wherever it is, we have pretty much always had two parties. Today we call them, Republicans and Democrats. They've had different names throughout the years. One of the interesting things is that most other countries around the world have a lot more than two political parties. They have a pluralistic or multi-party system where they may have 10, 12, 13 political parties. We have two. And so it's pretty unique that we fall into one of these two categories for the most part when it comes to U.S. politics. So the question is, what function do these parties play? First off, parties will nominate a candidate for office. We saw this with the U.S. presidency this whole past year. We saw, for example, for the Republicans, start with 12, 13 people and slowly whittle down to your one candidate, that right now being Mr. Trump. Democrats had the same thing. You saw Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton in this kind of very heated debate for a long time until Hillary Clinton was elected and nominated, if you will, by the Democrats for office. And so now they kind of whittled those two candidates down to just those two candidates. Now the parties are also going to fight to get their candidates elected. They're going to be pouring money into ads, pouring money into campaigns, doing those kind of things, make sure that their candidate is elected. So they'll get all the vote drives, they'll pay for appearances, they'll pay for commercials, those kind of things, help get their one candidate elected. Now, the whole deal here is that when that candidate gets to office, whether it be Congress or president or whatever, okay, their job then is try and pass legislation, get laws made that help support their party's goals. They're going to try, the idea is that kind of stay true to your party, which, we talked about in class not being the real reason you do politics, right? But a lot of times you kind of look at your party line and kind of see how your party would feel about something before you vote. Now, can you leave your party or vote against your party? Of course you can. People do it all the time. It's called crossing the aisle. Where a Republican may vote like a Democrat or vice versa. And it does happen once in a while when somebody votes with their heart and says, hey, I'm going to vote this way instead of the way my party wants me to. But the idea is that a lot of times you're supposed to be supporting your party, and your fellow Congress people will try to force you to follow that way. Bigger party, yeah, we expand the idea of political parties out. We have a couple main purposes to them. One is that they tend to represent groups of interests. You argue that obviously political parties represent me or you as an individual. They also have certain groups. Certain groups tend to gravitate towards certain parties. So if you have like farmers and African Americans and Hispanics and that kind of stuff, certain ethnic groups may gravitate towards Democrats versus Republicans. Certain job categories, okay, small business versus farmers versus teachers versus lawyers versus whatever, may gravitate towards one party over another. Gun owners versus non-gun owners. All those kind of things may gravitate towards one party over another. And so that one party will then represent that one interest. In a way, it also makes voting a little bit simpler for voters. To be honest with you, it kind of because they represent these broad ideas. If I, vote for Republican, I kind of know what they feel for. You know what I mean? I know that if I'm voting for Republican, hey, they support business, They're really conservative on social kind of things, and they were both sides of government. Done. I know exactly what, for most part, that Republicans are going to say. I also, if I vote for a Democrat, they're going to, help labor, help minorities, believe the government can solve a lot of problems. I kind of know the general thing that's going on here. In fact, when you go vote, and when you guys do vote, go vote someday, you can actually check a box that says, "Hey, just elect every Democrat on the ticket for me." I'll pass a ballot around class eventually, and so Mr. Bragger will too. That shows how you can circle one little box on a ballot and say, "Okay, I'm gonna vote for every Democrat. I'm gonna vote for every Republican, whatever it might be." Okay, and so it does in a way simplifies that choice for voters in terms of who you're voting for. It also kind of helps with making and promoting policy. Um, a lot of times you'll try and get your group on one side for your policy position. So if I'm a Democrat, I kind of know I'm going to argue this one side more or not to whatever the topic may be, whether it be gun rights or abortion or whatever. I'm probably going to fall one way. I'm going to encourage the other members of my party to vote with me because of our party affiliation and who we belong to. Now, looking at our parties here, we do have a Republican Party, and typically you look at our political spectrum, you kind of get that in your head, the big thing up in the front of the room, it's going to be on the right-hand side of the spectrum, okay? Typically, Republicans are more conservative, and so their big issues that smaller government is better. That means that they don't want the government to be really big and really powerful. They want to keep it small. They really want to keep the government out of people's lives if possible and let people depend more on their choices. And they're really focusing on individual choices and responsibility. So they're a smaller government, like less welfare programs, less regulatory agencies to watch over stuff, so that they're going to trust the individual to make the right decision. And the wrong one, well, that's their choice too. Typically, also, they focus more on traditional values. So, I mean, kind of think back to, the 40s, 50s, that kind of era of more traditional values. They may be rooted a little more in Christian values as well, because it's kind of more the traditional way of doing things here in the United States. So, it could mean, not necessarily being all for gay marriage or abortion or some other issues like that kind of stuff. More of a traditional, old school kind of way of doing things. On the other side, the Democrats will be more on the left of the system. Then they'll be more liberal. So they're kind of deciding, instead of being a smaller government, they're okay with expanding government to help people out. Okay, they feel that we kind of have this shared responsibility, right, to help people out, and they're okay with expanding government and adding more government parts to make things more equal for people. So they kind of have this more progressive kind of feel to things. They're willing to make change, if you will, and change things if they need to make them better. When you look at the end of it, both parties really want the same stuff. They want equality, they want justice, they want people to be happy, they want jobs, all the kind of stuff they want. It's just their way of getting there tends to be different, okay? Republicans are going to say more about individual choice. Democrats are going to say it's more about kind of a shared government responsibility to make things happen. And this, it's kind of, it's the same goal. It's just a totally different process of getting there. Typically think where parties are, and this is a map here showing the 2012 election, and we'll see one of these later on this year after the election in November. But you kind of see where the parties kind of hang out. So blue is Democrat, red is Republican. This is by state, so you can see a lot of blue here on the coast. Typically, you'll find Democratic states on the coast, so both East Coast and the West Coast. Up here in the Midwest, you'll see us here to the Midwest for most part on the Great Lakes area as well, whereas typically Republicans are more in the Midwestern states here in the South as well. A few states tend to change back and forth. They're pretty equal. They're called swing states. So we're a swing state, Ohio's a swing state, Virginia, and Florida, where we're pretty equal in terms of Republicans and Democrats. A lot of people are like, wow, Wisconsin's pretty equal, Republican, Democrat. We are, because our bigger urban areas like Madison, Milwaukee, are more Democrat, while the more rural areas are more Republican. But, we just kind of have a little edge Democrat going on right now here in the state of Wisconsin. Now, all the top parties are probably thinking, wow, there are only two parties in the United States. Guess what? Not quite. There are actually a ton of different parties in the United States, so you don't have to just be a Republican or a Democrat. Now, for class purposes right now, I'm going to kind of limit you to being either a Republican or a Democrat or a moderate independent. Sorry, okay? But there are different parties that are out there. They just maybe aren't as popular or as big as the two major parties right now. So you could join one of these parties if you want to. And a lot of times, one of these parties will align very closely to one of the major parties, but have some little differences to it. Some more unique ones that are out there. There is an American Nazi Party that does exist right now. There's an American Communist Party and Communist Party USA. That's not a Miley Cyrus song, right? I hope not, okay? You have, things like the American Beer Drinkers Party. I'm not really sure much about them. Don't ever want to know about them. But over here you have things like the Green Party, very focused on environmental issues. Libertarians, which are like Republicans with some slight changes to it. You have different parties that exist. Pot Party and the U.S. Marijuana Party, Socialist Party. A lot of different political parties do exist in the country. You can join them. Typically, the only downside of a smaller party that they aren't as popular, and they don't get as much kind of usually airtime and view time as the two main parties. You'll see it now with the presidential election. We do have two kind of bigger third parties, if you will. So it'll be the Green Party and the Libertarians. Both have candidates that are kind of have some name out there for president, with Jill Stein running for the Green Party and Gary Johnson running for the Libertarians. And interesting to see where this goes. Someday maybe we'll have more parties, but for right now, we are two big parties: Republicans, Democrats, and there are more parties out there, but they may not be as popular. So thanks a lot for listening, guys. We'll use this in class, and please make sure you answer your questions in Ed Puzzle and take your notes for use later on. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, everybody.